I was 15 to 16. That anger had taken root, and I become basically very hateful. I grew up during a time of the radical 60s. I was a young Black Panther youth and bought into that whole thing. My name is Ron Greer, and I am married to Rosalind Greer, 36 years. We have 3 sons and 3 amazing grandbabies. I grew up during the 60s, and what I was accustomed to was watching television, and you had all these examples of fathers as always best, and my 3 sons, and all these ideas of ideal families. And at an early age, I realized that wasn't our family. My dad never went to baseball games with me or took me places because he was always working. But as a child, because he didn't have those personal interactions with me, I became very disappointed and then angry. That turned into anger. So I ended up, because of my anger and hatred, I ended up trying to kill a man because he simply touched me. But as a white man, and I had developed into that attitude and ended up in prison. But what happened there in the prison was that, again, like the Bible says, I came face to face with myself. And God led me to understand my absolute need for Him. I became a Christian there in prison, and one of the things I was sort of compelled to do was to finally tell my dad all the things that I didn't like about him. And I started writing and writing. He never never responded. And finally, when he did, it was a simple thing, and I became angry about it. But I remember talking to my mother, and my mother expressed to me, "Your dad's never written anybody, but he wrote you that one little letter that you were angry about." And what I began to understand was my dad wasn't able to show in the TV and traditional way his love for me, but that one thing led me to understand he loved me. So I purposely, intentionally decided from that day I was going to develop a relationship with him whereby he would indeed have a relationship with me in a way that I understood it, where I loved him, he loved me. And to this day, we still have the same thing, where I started early on. Every time I talked to him, I said I was going to say I love you. And to this day, we talk. He always says I love you, and I say I love you before I hang up the phone or when we leave each other. To this day, still. So again, it's one of those things where I as a young man, he didn't have a way to effectively show me he loved me, and because he didn't, I was led off into these attitudes and these ideas about what he was and wasn't. But again, by the grace of God, I later on came to understand that this man loved me and more than I ever knew, and was willing to sacrifice all for that. You cannot assume that your children understand your love for them simply because you do. They require you actually expressing that and showing that in small ways. So I think the most effective way of showing your children and developing them this understanding of your love for them is that you spend time with them. You sacrificially spend time with them so that they come to a point where they understand that you value them. And if a child understands that you value them, they can forgive all kinds of things if they know that they're important in their father's eyes. But that takes time, it takes effort, and it takes some sacrifice on your part.
Hey, I just read an unbelievable article